One moment, your life feels solid, predictable. The next, everything crumbles beneath you, and you're left scrambling to understand how it all went so wrong. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in the life we'd built. Stephanie and I had been married for 12 years. We met in college. She was the kind of person who lit up a room without even trying. Funny, ambitious, and gorgeous. I was head over heels, and for a long time I thought she was too. We built a home together, and when our son, Liam, came along, it felt like we'd completed the perfect picture. But the perfect picture was just a facade. Over the past few months, I started to notice changes. At first, it was small things. Stephanie became more distant, distracted even when she was home. She'd always been focused on her career, but now there were sudden work trips, late nights at the office, and strangely, her phone never left her hand. She used to leave it lying around without a care, but now, if I even glanced at it, she'd angle it away or shove it in her pocket. I brushed it off for a while, telling myself I was imagining things. She'd say she was just tired or stressed from work, and I'd let it go because I didn't want to be the paranoid husband. But then Liam said something one night that stopped me in my tracks. It was a regular Tuesday evening. I was cleaning up after dinner while Stephanie sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Liam was at the dining table, working on his math homework. Out of nowhere, he piped up, "Mom, is David your boss? You're always talking about him." The sound of a dish slipping from my hands and clattering in the sink was the only noise in the room. Stephanie's head shot up, her face frozen for a split second before she gave a little laugh. "David's just a co-worker, honey," she said, her voice too cheerful. "Why do you ask?" Liam shrugged, unfazed. "I don't know. You talk about him a lot." My stomach churned. David wasn't a name I'd heard before. Not in any of her work stories. Not once in the years we'd been together. And yet, from the way her hand tightened around her phone and the overly casual tone she'd just used, I knew there was more to it than she was letting on. That night, as we got ready for bed, I finally asked, "So, who's David?" She didn't miss a beat. "I told you, he's just a co-worker. We've been working on a project together, so his name probably came up when I was talking to Liam." Her response was smooth, practiced even, but something about the way she avoided my eyes made my chest tighten. For the next few weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Her phone was always on silent now, and she'd take calls in the other room. She started working late, more often, and when I asked about her day, her answers were vague. One night, when she was out working, I decided to do something I never thought I'd stoop to. I checked our bank account. I hated the idea of snooping, but I couldn't sit in the dark any longer. What I found didn't just confirm my suspicions, it blew them wide open. There were charges I couldn't explain. Fancy restaurants, hotel bookings, and a suspiciously large purchase at a jewelry store. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the transactions, each one feeling like a punch to the gut. And then there was the kicker, a $20,000 withdrawal 2 weeks ago. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. What could she possibly need that much cash for? I knew I needed answers, but I also knew I couldn't confront her until I had proof. So I waited, and when I finally got my proof, it was worse than anything I'd imagined. After that night, I couldn't shake the unease. I told myself I was overthinking it, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. Stephanie had always been good with money, meticulous even. So, the $20,000 withdrawal felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just the amount. It was the secrecy behind it. I decided to dig deeper. I started keeping an eye on her behavior and noticed patterns I'd overlooked before. The phone calls she'd take outside, her car's gas tank mysteriously empty despite her just going to work, and most glaringly, her wardrobe. Dresses and heels I hadn't seen before started appearing in the laundry. She'd pass it off as treating herself, but it felt off. One evening, while she was in the shower, I gave into my growing paranoia. Her bag was sitting on the dining table, half-zipped. I knew it was wrong, but my hands moved on their own. Inside, I found a receipt, dinner for two at an upscale restaurant across town. Dated the night she said she was working late. My heart sank. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something stopped me. I knew she'd deny it. I needed more proof, something undeniable. That's when Liam, completely unaware of what was brewing, unknowingly dropped another bombshell. Dad, Mom was looking for a suitcase earlier. She said she needed it for her friend's trip. Do you know which one she meant? My hands tightened around the receipt in my pocket. I kept my voice calm as I asked, which friend? Liam shrugged, his attention already back on his homework. I don't know. She just said it was important. I didn't sleep that night. Something big was happening, and I was about to find out exactly what. 2 days later, she left for one of her so-called work trips. Before she walked out the door, I tried to act normal. I kissed her goodbye, even though my stomach was in knots, and watched her drive off with that suitcase Liam mentioned. I knew this was my chance. Once Liam was asleep, I went into full detective mode. I started with her laptop, but she'd logged out of everything. Her phone was with her, so no luck there either. But then I remembered something, a drawer in our bedroom where she kept old documents and random papers. It was a long shot, but I was desperate. And there it was, buried under a pile of receipts and bills. An envelope with her name and another name scrawled on it, David. My hands shook as I pulled out what was inside. Plane tickets, 2 of them. First class. A romantic destination I won't name, but it wasn't the kind of place you go for business. Along with the tickets was a printed email thread. I skimmed the first few lines, and my blood ran cold. It wasn't just a fling. It was an affair longer than I could have imagined. The messages were explicit, detailing plans for a future I wasn't a part of. David wasn't just her co-worker. He was her escape plan. And the $20,000? It was to cover some of his debts. I felt like I couldn't breathe. For hours, I just sat there, staring at the evidence in my hands. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do anything to release the storm raging inside me. But I couldn't. Not with Liam sleeping just down the hall. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was realizing how methodical she'd been, how easily she'd lied to my face while planning an entirely new life with someone else. I knew I couldn't let this slide, not after everything she'd done. But I also knew I couldn't act out of blind rage. I needed to be smart about this. The next morning, as I packed Liam's lunch for school, he noticed the tension in my face. "Dad, are you okay?" he asked softly. I forced a smile. "Yeah, buddy. Don't worry about me. Everything's going to be fine." What I didn't tell him was that I'd already decided on my next move. If she thought she could abandon us, leave me drowning in debt while she ran off with her boyfriend, she had another thing coming. I didn't confront her the day she came back. I couldn't, not yet. I needed to see her face, to hear her lies one more time. She walked through the door, smiling like nothing had happened, her suitcase wheeled behind her. "How was the trip?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Exhausting," she sighed, dropping her bag by the stairs. "I barely slept, but we got so much done. I think the project is finally coming together." It was almost impressive how easily the lies rolled off her tongue. I nodded, biting back the urge to say something then and there. I wasn't ready to show my hand just yet. That night, once Liam was asleep, I decided it was time. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like usual, when I dropped the envelope onto the coffee table in front of her. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. "What's this?" she asked, her voice too calm. "You tell me," I said, crossing my arms. She hesitated for a second before picking it up. As she pulled out the plane tickets and the email printouts, her face went pale. For the first time in months, I saw her confidence crack. "I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't. Just don't." My voice was sharp, and I didn't care. "How long has this been going on? How long have you been planning to leave us?" Her mouth opened and closed, like she was searching for the right words, but none came. Finally, she muttered, "It's not what you think." "Really?" I snapped, pointing to the emails. "Because it looks like you and David have been planning this for a while. And that $20,000 you took from our savings? That was for him, wasn't it?" She flinched, and I knew I'd hit the mark. "It wasn't like that," she said weakly. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way." "This way?" I laughed bitterly. "What way did you mean for it to happen, Stephanie? You were going to leave me and Liam, saddle me with your debt, and start a new life with him? Did you even think about what that would do to us?" Tears welled up in her eyes. but I didn't feel any sympathy. Not after what I'd uncovered. I wasn't going to leave Liam, she whispered. I was going to come back for him. That was the final straw. You don't get to come back for him, I said coldly. You don't get to make those decisions anymore. You've already made your choice. She tried to argue, but I walked away. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore. My mind was racing, my heart pounding, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her destroy what little stability Liam and I had left. What I didn't know then was that Liam had already set something in motion, something that would turn this entire situation on its head. The morning after the confrontation, I was still fuming. Stephanie had slept in the guest room, if you can even call it sleep. I heard her pacing most of the night, probably trying to figure out her next move. I didn't care. I had my own plans to deal with her betrayal, but before I could even act, Liam unknowingly threw a curveball that changed everything. We were having breakfast, the usual chaos of cereal and school prep, when Liam casually said, "Dad, did Mom tell you I helped her with her money problem?" What do you mean, buddy? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He looked up at me with the most innocent expression. She was talking to someone on the phone about a big bill, so I helped. I used my bank account. My mind went blank for a second. Your bank account? Yeah, he said proudly, like it was the most normal thing in the world. You always told me to save, so I had a lot in there. It's okay, though. I took care of it. My heart dropped. Liam had a small savings account we'd set up for him when he was little. He'd been diligently saving birthday money, allowance, and gifts from family for years. It wasn't much in the grand scheme of things, but to him, it was his treasure. Liam, I said slowly, how much did you give her? He shrugged, oblivious to the storm brewing in my head. All of it. She said she really needed it. I couldn't breathe. Stephanie had drained her own son's savings. A 10-year-old. She had looked him in the eyes and taken every penny he'd worked so hard to save. The anger I felt the night before was nothing compared to the rage that coursed through me now. Liam, I said, trying to stay calm for his sake. Do you remember how you sent the money? Did you give her cash? Or did you do something online? It was online, he said. She showed me how to transfer it to her account. I clenched my jaw. Okay, buddy. Thanks for telling me. You did nothing wrong, okay? You were just trying to help. He nodded, satisfied, and went back to eating his cereal. I got up from the table, grabbed my phone, and stepped outside to call the bank. It took some effort, but I managed to track down the transaction. Thankfully, since Liam was a minor, I had full control over his account. The bank confirmed the transfer and said it could potentially be reversed if it was flagged as unauthorized. And that's exactly what I did. 3 days later, while I was getting Liam ready for school, my phone rang. It was Stephanie. I let it go to voicemail, but the next call came immediately after. When I finally answered, her voice was frantic. "What did you do?" she yelled. "I fixed it," I said, my tone ice cold. "You're not getting away with this, Stephanie. You're not taking Liam's money or mine to fund your little fantasy life." "You don't understand," she cried. "David needed that money. He has people coming after him. And now they're going to come after me." I laughed bitterly. "Maybe you should have thought about that before dragging our son into your mess. You made your bed, Stephanie. Now lie in it." I hung up before she could respond, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Liam's savings were back where they belonged, and Stephanie was finally feeling the consequences of her actions. The best part? That wasn't even the end of it. After that phone call, Stephanie tried everything to get back into my good graces. She apologized, cried, and even tried to convince me that we could work through this. But I wasn't buying it. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught, and even sorrier that her perfect escape plan was falling apart. But her problems with David weren't my priority. Mine was making sure Liam and I could move forward without the weight of her betrayal hanging over us. And then, an opportunity practically fell into my lap. 3 days after I reversed Liam's transaction, I got a call from one of Stephanie's creditors. At first, I was confused. They mentioned the $20,000 loan, which, as far as I knew, was entirely her mess. But then they explained, my name was still attached to one of our joint accounts, and Stephanie had used it as collateral for her loan. I was furious. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She was trying to ruin me financially. But then it hit me. The account wasn't actually in use anymore. It was an old joint account we'd stopped using years ago, but it technically still existed. And because of that, I had just enough leverage to turn the tables on her. I went straight to my lawyer and explained the situation. With his guidance, I was able to file paperwork separating myself from the debt Stephanie had so generously tied to my name. It wasn't a simple process, but I was determined. Meanwhile, the lawyer pointed out something I hadn't considered. Stephanie's financial dealings, including draining our son's account, were borderline fraudulent. When Stephanie called me again that night, I didn't hold back. "Stephanie, you crossed every possible line," I told her. "You lied, you stole from Liam, and now I'm cleaning up the mess you made. You can tell David to figure out his own problems, because I'm done saving you." "You don't understand," she screamed into the phone. "David's in serious trouble. They'll come after me too." "Then I suggest you pack another suitcase," I said flatly, "because Liam and I are done with you. Oh, and by the way, the bank is coming for that $20,000 loan. Good luck explaining that to them." I hung up, feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. But the cherry on top came the next morning. Stephanie showed up at the house, tears streaming down her face. "You have to help me," she begged. "They froze my accounts. I have nothing." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "That's not my problem anymore." Then I shut the door in her face. I wish I could say I didn't feel anything seeing her like that, but the truth is I felt something I hadn't expected: peace. She'd done everything in her power to destroy me, but in the end, she was the one left with nothing. Liam and I spent that evening together, playing his favorite video game and eating pizza on the couch. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we were going to be okay. It's been a few weeks since everything went down, and life is finally starting to feel normal again, or at least as normal as it could be after something like this. Stephanie moved out completely. She's staying with a friend, though I suspect David's not as eager to take her in now that the money's dried up. I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. The $20,000 debt is still hanging over her, and I've made sure the lawyers and banks know it's hers alone. Cutting myself loose from her financial mess took a lot of effort, but the relief was worth every second. As for Liam, I've been doing everything I can to shield him from the fallout. He's been surprisingly resilient. He knows something big happened between his mom and me, but I haven't given him all the details. I explained it in terms he could understand. Sometimes grown-ups make bad decisions, and it hurts the people they love. But no matter what, I'll always be here for you. And he's taken it in stride. The other day, he came up to me with his piggy bank and said, "Dad, I'm going to start saving again. But this time, it's just for us." I hugged him so tight, I thought I'd never let go. As for Stephanie, she still tries to reach out. The calls have slowed down, but every now and then, I'll get a long-winded text about how she made a mistake and wants to fix things. I don't respond. She's not my responsibility anymore. There's a strange freedom in starting over. At first, I was terrified. How do you rebuild your life after 12 years with someone you thought you'd grow old with? But then I realized something. I'd been holding on to a version of Stephanie that didn't exist anymore, maybe never did. Now I'm focusing on what really matters. Liam and me. We're finding our rhythm again, just the two of us. It's not always easy, but it's ours. To anyone reading this who's been in a similar situation, I'll say this: you're stronger than you think. Betrayal feels like the end, but it's really a beginning, a painful, messy beginning, but a beginning nonetheless. Stephanie made her choice. And now, I'm making mine. We're moving forward, together, and we're going to be okay.